ZIGZAG and One, a place where we honestly discuss how to embrace the zigs and the zags in our crazy lives. Running away is not an option. Living in defeat is not an option. Instead, learning how to keep moving forward is what we'll do together, one nugget of wisdom at a time. Your host is Melanie Brown. She's navigated a few zigs and zags in her life with the determination to never give up. Expect great stories and lots of laughs. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the ZIGZAG and One podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Brown, and I am super excited to introduce you to my guest, Sue Reynolds. I stumbled across Sue on Instagram a while back. Her descriptions of her incredible transformation were filled with positivity and grit and determination. You guys know me, and you know I love those things. I knew her story was one I wanted to share with you. Her book, The Athlete Inside, releases today. I was thrilled to get an advanced reader's copy because I wanted to learn the details of her story before interviewing her. And let me just tell you, whether or not you're an athlete, you're going to want to read her book. Here's what you need to know about Sue. She's a 66-year-old triathlete who has been married to Brian for 41 years. They have 2 adult sons and 4 wonderful grandchildren. Oh, and 5 years ago, Sue weighed 335 pounds. I can't wait for you to hear Sue talk about her incredible journey. Please join my conversation with Sue Reynolds. Sue, I am so excited to spend time with you today talking about your book, The Athlete Inside. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's just a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to talk with you.
So if we could, let's start where your book starts, with you weighing 335 pounds. If you would, share with me the decisions and the habits that got you to that weight.
Yeah, so I was a big girl at one point, and I think I had been overweight almost all of my life. Eating was never really a concern, or being overweight was never really a concern of mine. My sense of self is based on my actions and not on my appearance. So it really never bothered me that I was a large person. I found that I had a job that I just loved. Like you, I was an educator, and I loved teaching. And after I left that career, I ended up being an educational consultant, and I loved that even more. And I stayed up late into the night, often working, not because I had to, but because I wanted to, because I just loved what I was doing. And to stay awake, I would eat. So I would maybe pull 2 or 3 all-nighters a week, and was eating, 3 dozen cookies in an evening, followed by a bag of M&Ms. I mean, it was just,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was just nonstop eating, and sweets was what I loved. And the weight just came on, and I thought I was a healthy overweight person, so it didn't bother me. And so I just got big and was obese for a good portion of my life.
And I love the statement in your book, because this is definitely a zigzag moment. You said the more that you gained, the greater the denial.
Yeah. So there were, I knew that society was, my body size wasn't attractive in the view of society. And so that part was difficult. And so I was in denial, and I didn't weigh myself. I didn't look in the mirror. I just didn't want to be reminded that I looked different than what society thought an attractive person looked like. So yeah, that part was in denial for sure.
So tell me about your turning point when you hit rock bottom.
Yeah. So the hard part about being morbidly obese for me was in being so big and so unfit. There were just lots of things that I couldn't do. So I couldn't like sit in a restaurant booth because my belly was so big, it just wouldn't fit in there. I couldn't even tie my own shoes because I couldn't reach my feet. That was maybe one of the worst parts. If I, wanted to put on socks, I'd have to ask my husband to put my socks on for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then things like, going into a public restroom, I couldn't use a regular stall. I could get my body into the stall, but I couldn't close the door behind me. So one morning I was sitting at the breakfast table about to eat a high calorie breakfast, and I just thought enough. And I remember just standing there and putting my hands out in front of me, palms away, and just saying enough. And then I said it again, enough. And that was it. I decided I needed to start making different choices. And once I made that decision, then I just started down a different path.
And I loved that because you said something inside of you just snapped. And when I was reading that part and you said enough, I could visually seeing you doing that. And that resolve carried through your journey. And that part really stuck with me. So it was just a beautiful thing. And you put in there that you didn't plan to lose 200 pounds that day, but that's the journey that you went on. So let's talk about that. What happened as far as once that day occurred, what did you start doing to make changes?
Yeah, so I decided to join a weight loss program, and I started with a program that involved counting points. And I was really successful on that program. I counted my food points every day. I lost 50 pounds. But the way I did the program, I don't think was the way that the developers of the program meant it to be implemented. What I did was I ate all my points in pancakes and donuts for breakfast, and then, and then I just wouldn't eat the rest of the day. And
I don't think that's the way they meant it.
No. So you can lose weight though doing it that way, but it's just not sustainable.
No, it's not. You need energy for the rest of the day.
Yeah. So I gained almost all of the weight back. And I think that was kind of another lesson for me is that, if you start off in, wanting to transform your life and it doesn't work in the direction you're going, then start again. And so I restarted and used a different nutrition program where it was just healthy foods. So I didn't leave out any food groups. I just basically ate healthy foods like probably most thin people do. And the weight just started coming off, a steady 2 pounds a week. So in the first year, I lost 100 pounds. And then the next year, I lost 50, and then 50 the year after that. So 200 pounds altogether came off.
That is just incredible. Just incredible. So after you started losing some weight, you signed up for a running event. Tell me about that event. You did that with your son.
Yeah, so I had, read probably like everybody has that there's two sides to losing weight. One is to, eat less. The other is to exercise more. So I started walking, and my first walk was to the neighbor's driveway and back. It was probably 100 yards. And that was all I could do. My husband was with me. I was holding on to his arm, and he was probably carrying half my weight, but we made it back. And then every day we just walked one more driveway until I could walk 3 miles. And my family was just so encouraging. Every time I finished a walk, I'd text my sons and I'd say, I walked to the second driveway, I walked to the third driveway. And then, and they'd always write back, woo. So finally I said, I walked 3 miles. And my younger son wrote back and said, that's great, Mom. Now you can do a 5K. And he signed me up for a 5K with him. I didn't really want to do it, but I thought it was a good mother-son event, activity.
Sure. Don't turn those opportunities down.
Yeah. So I said, okay. And he signed us up for a 5K that was called the Krispy Kreme Challenge. So I thought, how appropriate to have my first 5K be named after a donut.
I had to admit that I laughed when I read that part because there was a lot of irony there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I went and did that and finished and felt like I had won the Boston Marathon. I mean, it was just the best feeling in the world. I came in dead last, but I didn't care. I mean, it was just, I had exercised and I just felt wonderful about what I had accomplished. So that led to a little bit of running. My first run was literally 10 feet. I don't really think it was running, but my elbows were bent and my hands were moving a little faster, so I called it running.
I agree. Yes.
So, yeah, and then I, added in a little bit of a water aerobics class and a spin bike class, and then realized I could do all 3 events for a triathlon.
So let's talk about that first triathlon.
So the first triathlon, oh my gosh, I had no clue what I was doing. I had never been to a triathlon. I didn't know anybody who had done triathlons. I just got this crazy idea in my head that maybe I could do a triathlon. And I actually didn't ever think I would do it, but it just gave purpose for, like, when I was running, I would think to myself, oh, I'm training for triathlon. It just made me feel like I was, a tough, person. And so, but then one day I figured I got to the point where I could do all 3 events. So I signed up for one and I went, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done. And I came in like next to last again, but I thought, oh my gosh, I just completed a triathlon, and it changed like how I thought about myself, because now I was a triathlete, I could do that event. And I did it very, very slowly. I breaststroked the swim. At times I even stopped and treaded water to look around and see where I was. I walked through the transitions. In my first transition, I sat down and ate a sandwich and brushed my hair. And I mean, I was certainly not trying to set any speed record. I was just trying to hopefully make it to the end. And, when I crossed the finish line, I was so far behind everybody else that they had already cleaned up and they had already given out all the awards. And, they were just waiting for the last couple people to finish. And I was one of them. But when I came across that line, it was just like, in all the photos, I'm holding up one finger like I'm number one, even though I was, among the last finishers. So, but it was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
I have to say, it doesn't matter if you finish second to last. You're better than me in that I've never even attempted that. So I think that is just amazing. What else is amazing to me is how old you were and how much you weighed at that time. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Yeah, so at my first triathlon, at that point, I think I had lost 100 pounds. So I was still 225 pounds. So I was still like, obese. And, when you think about how much that is, I like to think, when I tell people what it's like to try to exercise when you're overweight, if you think about a large bag of ice that weighs 20 pounds. So I was trying to do a triathlon carrying 5 20-pound bags of ice with me. I mean,
wow.
That's hard. And the nice thing about the triathlon community, though, is everybody was so encouraging. I think they realized how hard it was for me, with this obese body to be doing that. So people were cheering and, people were just so amazingly encouraging and kind. It was just wonderful. So, yeah, and I was 60 years old. So
that part just blows me away.
Yeah.
that you've made this transformation later in life and such a big, just everything about it talks about your age and the obstacles and the zigzags that you had to overcome and the perseverance to that goal is just totally impressive to me. So all I can say is you go, girl. That is just mind-blowing. And I love it. So let's talk about your coach that helped you, as you said, okay, now I have done one triathlon and I want to get better. I want to get faster. And of course, the weight started coming off as you made these plans. So tell me about Coach Brandt.
Yeah. So part of the book is about this kind of unique intergenerational relationship that I developed with my coach. And when I first contacted him, I just found him online. I really wasn't looking for a coach because I'm thinking I'm 60 years old. I'm obese. I'm totally unfit. What coach is going to want to coach me? I mean, it just never even occurred to me that I could have a coach. But I had a question and wanted to know like the answer to the question. So I called him up and to his credit, he agreed to work with me and coach me, and he's been wonderful. He's built my confidence. He's helped me see myself as an athlete. Um, at one point, he said, "Sue, you really have some skill here, and if you commit, I think you could really go far with triathlon." So he's helped me to believe in myself.
Well, he was right about that for sure, because you made a commitment that is just outstanding. If you would tell me what the event triathlon is and the distance of each event, because that part, not a lot of people know about. And I have heard about triathlons, but I didn't know the distances of each of those events. And to me, that makes your story all the more powerful because, again, you were an older individual and you had some major obstacles, yet you just kept pursuing that.
Yeah. So in triathlon, there are different events. Just like in track and field, there are different events. So there's the Ironman triathlon, which is the long one that you hear about people doing in Hawaii. That's a 140-mile race. And then there's shorter events. So I race at two different distances. My specialty is I race in the sprint distance triathlon. So that is basically a half-mile swim and then a 12-mile bike and then a 5K or 3-mile run. So, and the whole thing takes about, my first one took me 2 hours and 15 minutes, and now I'm down to like an hour and 25 minutes.
That is just incredible, Sue.
But it's fast. I mean, with those short ones, you're racing at red line, where if you went any faster, you'd like pass out. So it's fast. So, and then just recently, last year, I started also racing the half Ironman distance. So that's a 70-mile race, 70.3-mile race. And that one you don't race as fast because it took me 6 hours and 25 minutes to finish that one. So you don't go as fast, but you have to go for a long time. So
it is a long time.
Yeah, it is a long time.
I read a quote that I found so interesting because when you signed up for Coach Brandt and worked with him those years, the faith component wasn't something that you were searching for, but it kind of integrated itself along the way. And one of the quotes that I just loved, I had the strangest sense that my journey was happening to me rather than because of my actions. It was a spiritual trip back to God. It was hard, but God was waiting with open arms. Tell me about that part of your journey.
So that actually started happening in the beginning when I was losing weight. When I lost about 90 pounds, everything just started feeling surreal to me. The weight loss was kind of becoming easy. It was just becoming a habit. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, who loses 90 pounds? I didn't know anybody had ever lost that much weight. And I had always assumed it was impossible. And then, when I started doing the 5K walks, and everybody was just so nice. I mean, everyone around me was just showering me with kindness. And it really started to freak me out. I mean, I just started thinking, why are all these people being so nice to me? I mean, it was just weird. So in the back of my mind, I was starting to think, I wonder if this is God. I mean, are these angels? I just couldn't figure out, what was going on. And so I had all those questions. I had always gone to church every Sunday, but I had stopped having an active relationship with God. So I wasn't like praying every day. And That God just had stopped being part of my life. So I really wasn't sure what was happening. And then I started getting some answers. One was that our pastor at our church talked about how sometimes God blesses us with gifts when he's trying to get our attention. And
Mm.
started thinking, oh, could that be happening? And then out of the blue one day, Coach Brandt said, "You're perfect just the way God made you." And
Oh, that's powerful.
yes, and I didn't even realize that he was Christian. And just, when he said that, if this had been a movie, like the heavens would have opened and God would have been screaming down at me. I mean, I felt like I'd been hit in the head with a 2x4, which is like, oh my gosh, this is God, and God is reaching out to me. And then one of my sons, who is now a pastor, he also at the same time he echoed what Coach Brandt said, and I thought, oh my gosh, now I'm hearing it twice, and just out of the blue for my son as well. So I figured out finally that all of this kindness was the face of God, and that's how God provides kindness to us through others. And so that was that part. And then there was a later part too, where Coach Brandt's family went through a catastrophe, and I got to witness the strength of his faith. His wife was in a situation where she had cancer, and they thought they might lose her, and I got to see how he believed that life itself was an earthly thing, and that we should be focused on heavenly things. And just seeing the strength of his faith and witnessing that taught me so much about faith. It also taught me a lot about discipleship and how we can be disciples in our everyday lives. And that was just, I was not expecting a spiritual journey when I started triathlon in losing weight, but it certainly has ended up being the main focus of my journey.
Well, and so much of what you have learned along the way is, as you said, kindness and discipleship. All of those things are part of our journey as Christians. And what better way to show you than not being so focused on that? Sometimes I think we get so focused on doing the things of God that we don't really, our heart's not in it. But it was so organic with what you were doing with Coach Brandt that your heart was receptive to it, and it impacted you in a profound way.
Yeah.
To me, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful way of God teaching us lessons and our heart being more receptive to it. Because it was all through your weight loss journey and through learning a new skill and being focused on that. But he's speaking to your heart all along. And that's just so beautiful.
Absolutely. One of the things that Coach Brandt has told me is that he believes that his coaching is a calling, and that God will bring him the people that he, would like Brandt to touch. And I asked Brandt, he always has the perfect thing to say. And I asked Brandt one time, how do you know what to say? You always have such wise words. And I mean, he's younger than my children, so it's he's got so much wisdom. And he explained, he said, he believes that when God brings him people, God also gives him the words to say. So he just totally believes in everyday discipleship. And so that's something, I've learned so much from him. And now I'm working to do in my life too, to look at, who might God bring to me, and what might God want me to say to them. So, yeah.
And your story is one that you can teach so many lessons to someone else, even if it's not about weight loss, even if it's not about training for a triathlon. There's so many lessons that you have learned that you shared in your book that I can't wait for the listeners to read, because it's not just about your weight loss journey. It's not just about training for triathlons, but it's about how you transformed over time. And there's so much to learn from your story.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've learned, is that there are lots of applications for the lessons. And, we all have transformations that we want to make. It may not be weight loss, like you say, but the lessons, things like saying, go away fear and go away pride and, no excuses, whatever it takes, whatever your zig and zag is.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever that is, you can move forward. You can.
You're stealing my tagline. My tagline is keep moving forward. But yes, it's exactly what you did throughout the book. Exactly. One of the quotes that you also put in here that I love, because it's the true heart of an overcomer, is you began seeing roadblocks as detours or bumps and figured out a way through, and that nothing would stop you. Talk to me about that for a second.
Yeah. So I think when there's an obstacle, you can see it as a dead end, or you can see it as an obstacle. And a lot of times I think, when something gets tough, we see it as a dead end and we let it stop us. But I've never, in any part of my life, I've never believed that. I think that you just keep trying and trying and trying, and if plan A doesn't work, then you go to plan B. If plan B doesn't work, then you go to plan C. Sometimes I get to plan W before I figure out a way around or through whatever that obstacle is. But there's just no stopping. I mean, you just keep going, you just keep moving forward.
I love that. It's beautiful. You talked in your book about all the different triathlons that you participated in, but I want to focus, excuse me, for the last few minutes about the one that was a defining moment for you. Tell me about the one where you became 6th in the world.
Yeah, so that was my second World Championship, and it was the World Championship in Rotterdam, and it was just a wonderful race. I had a really great swim. The bike course was really technical, but I nailed it, and the run was hard. I thought I was going to die as I came down the finish chute, but I crossed the finish line, and the results came up, and I was 6th in the world. And it was such an emotional moment. I could get choked up even thinking back on it now, because when you think about I finishing dead last in little local triathlons, and then finishing 6th in the whole world, and I was the first American to cross the finish line, and it was just an amazing race. So this was a world championship for all different. They had different events, and so I was racing in the age group triathlon world championship, but it was sponsored by the same group that sponsors our Olympic team. So I got to wear the same uniform that our Olympians wear, and there was a medals count. So my medals, not my medal, but the medals from my competition were added into the Olympians and their competitions for the overall medals count. I mean, it was just a fabulous event, and to finish 6th there was just. I called Coach Brandt, and I just remember talking a million miles an hour because I was just so excited.
It was a phenomenal part of your book for me, because as I'm reading, I'm going, you go, Sue, you go, Sue. And then we get to that part, and I kind of knew it was coming because of the information that I had seen on your Instagram and all of the publicity that you've done leading up to your book launch. I knew that it was coming, but it was a very triumphant moment for me to read that for you, because that is huge. How old were you when that happened?
At that point, I was 65.
Wow.
64. Yeah.
That is just incredible. And all the way down to what weight?
I was at 135 then. So yeah, I hit
200 pounds.
Yeah.
Just incredible, Sue. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy journey.
I would say so, yes. As we end the show, can you tell me what your one takeaway that you want the listeners, as we finish, for them to just chew on, for them to think about?
Yeah, I think the one thing I've learned from my journey that I think applies to any journey, be it weight loss or doing better in a career or having a closer relationship with God, I think the one message is that you can transform your life at any age. I truly believe that's true, and I think I'm proof.
You are living proof. I would not disagree with that in the least. And I will tell you, and this is the honest truth, your story inspires me greatly. And so I am so blessed to spend time with you today. I am so super excited about today's book launch for The Athlete Inside. And I encourage everyone listening to go grab a copy, because I know that Sue's story of overcoming is going to encourage and inspire you. So thank you, Sue.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And for folks that decide to purchase the book, it's available everywhere, as you said. The other thing is that all of the proceeds from the book are being donated to USA Triathlon Foundation to help people with disabilities participate in triathlon. Talk about inspiring, to watch amputees or people that are blind compete in triathlons. I mean, oh my gosh. And I'm just thrilled that my journey and the book sales can help those people with their journey. So when you purchase a book, you're helping others in that regard as well. And if anyone's interested in reading tips about triathlon or weight loss, my website, SueReynolds.net, has lots of tips on it that people can look at also.
I can't wait to check out your website. When life zigs and zags, and you know it will, remember, transforming your life is possible at any age. And as Sue and I say, keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward.
I absolutely love Sue's one takeaway. You can transform your life at any age. Friends, those are wise words spoken from someone who proved it is possible. Be sure to pick up a copy of Sue's book, The Athlete Inside. And don't forget to check out our website, SueReynolds.net, for more inspiration and insight from Sue. Since starting this podcast, I've been very intentional about sharing practices that help us and strengthen us when we're struggling, like humor, creativity, and positive thinking. And today's episode is a great example of how exercise can be an important part of our journey when we face the zigzags in our path. We all know exercise strengthens our bodies and our minds. I am super excited for the month of May because I have some episodes ready for you about how music lifts us up when life is good and ministers to us in those challenging times. I look forward to connecting with you in May. Until then, keep moving forward.